Welcome to the Eagle Valley Model Railroad. This video we're going to have a operations session where we move cars from the Eagle Valley East Yard to the Interchange, over to the Auxiliary Yard, back to the Interchange, and finally over to the Eagle Valley East Yard. We're setting in the lift out and ensuring that all of our tracks lined up properly, so the train will transition the lift out without any issues. We're using the JMRI system to build a train, and we've got our manifest sheet here, and we're going to build a train that consists of 7 cars. So first thing we're going to do is grab our engine out of the engine house and get to work. Here at the Eagle Valley, we do have a fuel station that's positioned directly behind stall number 3 in the engine house, and you basically have to access that fuel station through that bay number 3. So we're going to reach back here and grab it real quick. Going to go ahead and place him on track number 1, and we basically named our tracks on the layout from the inside of the layout to the outside. So we're going to place this tanker at track number 1. We do have to pick up the blue box car that's in that position. So to keep the tanker from being directly behind the engine or the last car on the train, we're going to go ahead and place him in that track number 1, and that'll give us a 1-car buffer to the end of the train. We'll come back and pick it last. When we get to some of these drop-offs, you'll see the engine back up and pull forward and back up. But what we're trying to do at that point is utilize the magnets that are been placed in the track to decouple the train. Even though we don't have any switch machines on the layout, we try to be as hands-off as we can. And I tell you, even placing these magnets in myself, once you get ballast over it, if you don't have them marked very well, it's tough to find them sometimes. But when they work, it's real nice. So we're gonna head over and grab the gondola off of track number 3. And track 1 is one of our longest pulls. It actually comes all the way out to the lift out as far as the yard tree is concerned to get back into the yard. So we push the gondola off the magnets and we pull up and we're able to grab a hold of it. I hadn't really studied the program too much. I'm not real sure if there's a specific way to build your train as far as the list is concerned. It kind of bounces around a little bit, and I really just haven't taken the time to study the moves to see if there's any logic behind it. Every time I do this, I say I'm going to, and I just don't take the time to. So we may set up another train and really look at how the train is set up and the moves that it requires and drops off, and to see if there is any kind of logic behind it. So like this right here, it's calling to get the yellow and green stock car, and it's also calling to get the sealed 50-foot brown box car, but it's telling me to get it in 2 separate steps. So I just grabbed it in one, and that's what I'm talking about. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but in my thought, it cuts down on moves now, but I'm curious if it adds moves later. So now we're going to drop back in and grab a wood chip hopper and a Southern Railroad 40-foot box car off of track number 4. And again, if the original drop off was left over the magnet, you have to push it off the magnet, pull the train up just a little bit, and that way you can back in and recouple. And now we're going to pull all the way through the yard ladder, jump back on track number 1, and we'll grab our tanker and our blue sealed box. I try my best when I'm operating to time out my moves to my switches. My normal operating speed is step 3, and then I try to, once I get a car length away, I'll drop it to step 2, half a car to step 1, and then I don't stop, I just reverse direction to try to couple up the cars. And now that our train is built, we're going to leave the yard. I probably could have done a little bit better on the focus on this scene right here. So here's our interchange yard. It's unique that we have a dirt path headed over to the dry lake, and of course we don't want our parked cars blocking the drive, so we have location 1 and location 2. My purpose in this move right here is to set out fuel tank car and the blue sealed box car, which conveniently enough we left at the end of our train, so that's going to help. But we got to do a unique maneuver here because we still want to leave the driveway clear, but we do have the decouple magnets in position where the black coal hopper is. And dropping off these two cars, we're going to absolutely fill up this section of the track, and we'll be blocking the road if we use the decouple magnet position. So what we're going to have to do is just shove everything back and actually position our cars from the other end. That way we can maintain our clearance. So let's just say the decouple magnet for the black and orange tanker is right there. You see we're blocking the driveway, and the Baby Ruth boxcar is actually more in position 2 than it is position 1. Now, because we have so many cars in here, we couldn't come back on the inside track because it's blocking the switch, so we had to just do a runaround. So we're going to couple up to the back of this section, or try to. And we do have a set of decouple magnets back here to our right. We'll pull everything out here. Try our best to decouple between the stock car and the Baby Ruth car. There we go. It took more times than I cared to show on video, so that's why we cut the scene to the successful attempt. And then we'll spot these cars on that runaround, and we'll be clear of the switch at the top of the screen, and we'll be clear of the drive access over the track. And you can clearly see we're way beyond the point of the decoupling magnet. But everything sits right in that location just like it was designed to. We'll come back and decouple from the front of the engine here and spot these two cars in location number 2. It's a little bit of a headache. There we go. Shove these two cars clear of the switch. And leave the driveway clear. And that's our first stop at Interchange. Now we'll head over to the auxiliary yard and continue on with our switching. And we could have pulled up the hill and then back through the switches, but we're just going to do a runaround. Setting our switches to get our train over. and coming into the auxiliary yard here. It's calling for our first move to pick up the well cars, and then to pick up the brown box car and the bulkhead flat that's on track number 2. The well cars doesn't do very good on these tighter turns on the easy track that I've got here. All I have is 18-inch radius. So we're going to grab the cars off of track 2 first and keep these well cars off of those tight curves. It actually makes an S to get to access track number 2, and that's what the well cars don't like. Even though the other turns on here are 18-inch and they do just fine, to access track 2 from the main yard lead, it actually creates an S, and that's what gives our well cars an issue. So I've got another magnet set back there where the just about in line with the water tower. We're going to uncouple the last car in that group, reset it back on track 2, and we'll reach in here and grab these well cars, and then we can drop off our set outs. Again, trying to stay off of camera so I'm not sitting right over top of the decouple magnets, so you guys don't have to see my ugly mug in the video. So it's a little bit tougher to decouple these things over the magnets when you're not standing right there in front of them. So I cut out all the unsuccessful attempts so you guys don't have to sit here and watch all of that. So again, it takes a little bit more maneuvering and operation, but I like the fact that I'm not reaching over track 1 to stick a stick back there to decouple that last car. I just pull it out to the decouple magnet and then shove it back in place. And we're gonna reach in here and grab these well cars. And then get ready to do our set outs. That's a nice little pickup. And again, for those of you that don't know, we're just using the easy track right now on the auxiliary yard because we're going to do the mountain scenery around the incline before we lay out all of our permanent track. So to be able to utilize the space, we actually modified a piece of easy track to match up with our outside main, so we could do some operations on the auxiliary yard. So we're just backing clear the switches here. We're going to push these back over to the interchange, drop off the cars attached to the front of the engine, and that'll clear up and give us less train to deal with when we do our drop-offs at the auxiliary yard. The track plan for the auxiliary yard will allow for a classification track. That way this much maneuvering won't have to go on. So now that we've cleared the entrance to the auxiliary yard switch, we're going to shove all this up the hill, clear the crossover to get to the inside main, and we'll cross back over, get on the inside main, and then switch over to actually push into the interchange section. So a little bit of maneuvering going on here, but it makes it a lot easier to operate when you have a a little bit less train to deal with when you're trying to set off and do some maneuver. So we'll clear the inside track here. We decided to back way up on this one. And we'll shove these in the clear. Now we have a decoupling spot on the runaround right here, just about where the RFP boxcar is sitting. And we should be able to drop those off right there. Apparently it took more times than I cared to show. I do have little markers next to the track. Sometimes it's just a little push pin, sometimes it's like a stump or what have you, but it's tough to get it when you're not sitting right in front of it. So we're gonna come back, get back on the outside main here. We'll clear that switch, back in place. We do have a decouple spot on the outside main, right here at the switch. And the purpose for that is to do our set outs in the auxiliary yard. We actually have to be positioned at the rear of the train. And again, you can see I'm all the way to the back right here. My decouple magnets are right here in front of me. And you just hope you get it on the right spot. And I know it's around here somewhere. There it is. I wasn't back far enough. So now we'll do a run around on the whole layout so we can access the rear of the train. And here comes the old solo engine right around Church Hill. We grab that, and we've already pulled it back, cleared the switch to enter the auxiliary yard, and we're starting our switching to do our set outs. We're going to set the gondola on track 1. And again, just using the decoupler up top and then shoving it back decoupled. Come back up to the decoupler, and we're going to drop off the brown boxcar at the end, and it'll go on track number 2. Pretty good decouple there. Just clear the switch. And then all three of these cars will be placed on track 1. Again, it's a little bit extra maneuvering with the engine, using a decoupling spot instead of just pushing it into the yard lead or the, not the yard lead, but the actual track itself, the spur itself. But it just keeps me from reaching in and decoupling cars and knocking cars off the track and this and that and the other. For me, it's just a little bit cleaner. Again, it causes more movement. It's not necessarily the most prototypical way of doing it, but I just like the fact that I don't have to reach in and decouple cars as I've spotted them in place. Now we'll take our solo engine and we'll go run around and grab the front of our train again and start switching our second stop at the interchange. So we're just going to run through the switches right here to get to our second track, or our inside main, excuse me. And that gets us to our inside main, and we can run around to the front of our train we parked here. Grab it up. Well, let's try that again. So our purpose here, we're going to pick up the Baby Ruth car. We're going to pick up the silver tanker. We're going to pick up one of the sealed box cars. We're going to pick up the coal car, and we're going to pick up the stock car. So the only thing we're going to leave is the blue box car and the black tanker. So we'll pull absolutely everything out. Just checking that old sheet, making sure I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, making sure I'm grabbing what I'm supposed to be grabbing. Come on, boy, speed that thing up. So we'll clear the switch here. Back over our decouple spot. We'll cut the train off right behind the blue box car, and then we'll respot those two cars back in their normal position. Let's see how good you are when you're standing right in front of it. Oh, you're horrible. Pressure on being filmed gets you all nervous. There we go, it took 2 tries. So now we'll pull up, clear the switch. And then we'll shove everything back into location number 1 and on the intermodal track. Alright, here we go. Oh yeah, first try. That's when it's nice, when it works out like it's supposed to. So we'll come back and grab the rest of our train and head to the east yard. And like I say, if you leave it over the magnets like we just did, what you're going to do is you're going to have to shove it off the magnets, pull forward to align the couplers, and then back into it, and it should couple right back up. So we'll shove it off, pull forward, grab a hold, and head out. It's nice when it works right. We're going to set up our track here so we can do a little run around and do a little video shooting. Hate to do all that work and just stay right there at the Industries and not enjoy the train we just built. That's a pretty good sized train too. Good diverse loads on this one. It transitions that incline pretty good too. I'm very pleased with how that's turned out. I'm glad we went down that road. I was a little nervous, but I'm glad we ripped up track and added our incline. So we're gonna enjoy that. Pulling down into the yard here, swap back over to the inside main, and that way we can access the yard lead, and we'll start taking this train apart. Start off at track number 2. Dropping off that box car, that sealed box. And at the edge of our concrete pad in front of the engine house, for all 4 of our tracks there, that's where our decoupling magnets are. And they are absolutely hid. Even I'm sitting there staring dead at it. They're absolutely hid, and you cannot tell they're there. But again, even a couple maneuvers there, and it keeps me from having to reach in, especially when the yard gets full. Love to get us some switch machines, and that way we can throw switches and really get our hands off the layout. Shoving the red stock car back to track 3. Do a little bit of bouncing around here And maybe, I'm not sure, again, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper with it, but maybe at this point, this is where if you absolutely went by the switching list and cause a little more switching in the beginning, you can cut out some of the back and forth toward the end of the drop-offs. I'll do some investigating and let you guys know. Now for the Baby Ruth car, we're going to set him off. Looks like it's going to be track number 1, so we're going to have to pull all the way through the yard ladder to the very first switch to access track 1. And again, I roll in on step 3, get about a car length away, and go to step 2. And then I actually do my decoupling at step number 1. And if things do right, and they didn't this time, you line up right over that magnet and you can leave that car sitting right where you want it. I do 3 magnets wide, and I skip a tie. So I'm dealing with six ties. Is the spot I'm trying to hit every time. So it's pretty neat, but the engine's real consistent as far as being on level 9 momentum and traveling at step 1. I can go from step 1 to completely stopped within 3 ties. So there is you can get pretty accurate with it. You just got to know where your magnets are. So we're dropping off the silver tanker on track number 2. We're getting a little better at it now. Got our coal car here, needs to go to track 3, so we don't have to go too far outside of the yard to get swapped back over. In running speed step 3, I usually give myself a little bit of a cushion. I'll hit the directional button probably when I've got half the car through the switch. So by the time it decelerates, stops, reverses, and accelerates back, that gives me time for it to get cleared to switch and for me to throw the switch. So usually about a half a car. The longer cars, of course, I err to the side of caution with it, and I give myself a little bit more time. So this brown car here needs to go. I lost my place. Needs to go to track number 1. So again, we got to come all the way out of the switch, all the way out of the yard to access that front switch and shove him in place. And then from one extreme to the other, once we get this car set, the bulkhead flaps got to go all the way to track number 4. And you notice on my decouplers, they're all on straights. You really have to have it each car lined up pretty straight for these magnets to work. You can get away with it into curves, but it has to be a a pretty big radius curve, so the magnets will pull apart properly. So that limits where you can decouple with the magnet system. But it's a compromise that I'm willing to take, again, to keep my big old fumble fingers out of the way. So we're going to set the bulkhead flat back here in the on track number 4. Ease over the decouplers and set it off first shot. Old boy's getting good at it now. About time. He's decoupled plenty of them. Now all 3 of the well cars, of course, can go back here to the what we're calling the intermodal yard. We actually have our decoupling magnets right here in front of you, so you'll be able to see that. It's right around where my hand is. We did that because of the fact that we've got to have it decoupling in a straight, and I didn't want to limit how many cars I could put in the intermodal yard. So we're decoupling them way back here, and then we'll shove those into place. So we'll find our magnet right here. There we go. Couplers will match up, and we can shove them babies home. Like I said, it's nice when it works like it's supposed to. And if you stop over the magnet, they work just about every time. Sometimes your couplers will get into a bind, especially if you've had them together for a while. Your couplers are bind up and they won't want to release easily, so they need a little help. But more times than not, if you line that thing up and stop right over the magnet, it's going to come uncoupled and it's going to work just like you want it to. So we'll get our track set up. I believe our engine is going back to engine track number 2, which is the middle bay. Run it all the way up the yard ladder to the very first switch. And that first switch actually accesses the engine house and track number 1. And that engine's done a pretty good bit of work today. So we'll set him in the bay and give it a little bit of a rest. Hope you guys enjoyed the this switching video, and plan on doing some more like this. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and until next time, happy modeling.